All right, everybody, welcome back to the Glass Less Traveled podcast. My name is Mike Verivia. I'm a certified bourbon steward and founder of the Fox Valley Whiskey Society. We're going to explore and introduce you to America's craft distilleries, microbreweries, industry insiders, and professional imbibers to give you the inside scoop on the things you need to be drinking. If you guys like what you're watching, don't forget to hit like and subscribe down below. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram at the Glass Less Traveled, and you can also become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/the Glass Less Traveled. Tonight we're joined by some friends of ours at 93 Octane Brewing in St. Charles, Illinois. We've got with us Alex Makowski, head brewer over at 93 Octane, and Nick Ford, sales manager. Nick is in the middle. Alex is over there on the right. Gentlemen, welcome. I'm going to grab my...
Thanks for having us.
I'm going to grab my beer so I have something to drink. I actually have two of your beers, so I'm drinking the Running on Empty right now. And then I have the Joyride, which is right behind me. Let's get into the brewery. Tell us about 93 Octane, how it began, and what connection it has to the petroleum industry, because I think a lot of people might be curious about this.
Yeah, so the owner of 93 Octane, the financial backer of 93 Octane, also owns the Pride gas stations around the Chicago area, and Parent Petroleum, which is located also here in St. Charles. He was a big craft beer enthusiast, wanted to start a brewery. We also have a built-in outlet with all of the Pride gas stations for our beer. So we were able to, start a brewery, make beer, and automatically have placements for it, which is a huge benefit.
So Parent Petroleum is kind of like the I guess for lack of a better term, we'll call it the parent company. But the connection to BP, is it just kind of like coincidental, or is there something?
They are a supplier for BP.
Okay. Which is probably which is where you guys. I mean, everything at the. If you guys haven't been to been over there to the brewery, those of you guys watching or listening, it's we're just outside of downtown Geneva, right over just across from the Walgreens and I guess CVS over there, right on the far west side of Geneva, towards Randall Road. Everything there is like completely automotive themed. It's super, super cool. All the beers have automotive themed names. So really, really cool. But it was kind of interesting to me, and a lot of people were asking me when I was telling them when I was doing this with you guys, are like, ask about the BP thing, because I'm pretty sure it's like all BP owned. I'm like, I don't know, man. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's not owned by BP, that's for sure. Yeah. I think if you're owned by BP, this place might be about 10 times the size.
Yeah. Alex might have a little bit more room to brew.
Yeah, that's a definite. Yeah, we make do with what we have, though.
Yeah. Tell us about the style of brewing at 93 Octane. What can we find in the tap room for those of us that haven't been there yet?
We're brewing seasonality, obviously automotive themes. We're us being a new startup. I don't have hop contracts yet. I just came on the team. So we're a little behind the eight ball as far as getting like the desirable sought after hops. But I have a few ideas for the brew house that I can manipulate. Innovations just to use the same palette everyone else is using, but get new flavors and interesting brews.
So, Alex, tell us about your experience in the beer industry, because you just came on with 93 Octane. Talk to us about your journey that ultimately led to you being where you're at now, because you've been in the beer industry for quite a while.
Yeah, since I was 21, legally, we'll put it that way. So I started out like a lot of brewers as a home brewer, but I was only 19. I decided to buy my dad a homebrew kit for Father's Day, and that kind of dictated, the past 10 years of my life. So started homebrewing and got really into it. And I mean, probably early, like 10th batch, maybe. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this for a living. But being, 18, 19 years old, in America, that wasn't gonna fly. So went to school with Marquette for engineering, all the while in the back of my mind knowing like, I'm probably gonna pursue craft brewing as a as a profession. So all the while, while being underage, all I did was homebrew and read about brewing and hone my craft before I can legally do it. So I studied for the Cicerone exam when I was 20, with the idea that right when I turned 21, I'm going to take the exam. And sure enough, it was like 2 weeks after my 21st birthday. Took the exam. I failed the written. You need an 80. You need an 80 to pass. I got like a 76.
Oh.
I passed the tasting and the practical. So studying for it, there's the draft management system, and I've never poured a beer in my life. So I had no idea what I was doing. I ended up calling a guy who cleans draft lines. So I said, hey, I'm taking this exam. Could I follow you around for the day? So sure enough, he let me come. We went around to a couple bars and he showed me how draft system works. And then from there, turned 21 and then started cold calling breweries in the area. And no one wanted to hire a 21-year-old with no experience.
Sure.
Despite me, let me back.
Really?
I did end up passing the written exam like 2 months later, making me the youngest Cicerone in the world. And
Really?
I thought that would give me a lot of credibility. I get a hold of Ray Daniels, the founder, saying, "Hey, Ray, I'm only 21 and 2 months years old. Can you promote me a little, help my career jumpstarts?" And I got back. Someone from the company got back to me saying, it's not really, it doesn't shine good light on us that a 21-year-old can pass this exam. So I was on my own, but it was on the resume at this point. End up, getting turned down by a lot of breweries, and then got a job at Finch's in the city. And I don't know if you're aware of that Finch Brewing Company, but it was like a nursery for brewers. I mean, people would just come with like a rotating door. You get some training, you put it on the resume, and you move on. I know a lot of great brewers that are all over the country now that started off there. So then I worked there for about 8 months. I got hired at Two Brothers. I worked there with Nick for the past. I was there for 8 years, but
6 for me. Yeah.
Anywho, I started the packaging line, putting 6-packs on cans for 8 hours a day. My wrist sounds like a concrete mixer.
Yeah.
Worked my way up. Positioned the brew house open. I was, put my name in the hat. I was the night brewer. All the while, I was studying for the masters to get the World Brewing Academy, the Siebel Institutes, and I got accepted in 2015. So the course takes 9 months. No, I'm sorry, 8 months, and 4 months I'm in Chicago at the Siebel Institute of Technology, and the other 4 I went to the Newman's Academy in Gravelfing outside of Munich. So I was trained by Germans, even though I was already knew what I was kind of doing in a brew house, but I got the technical background from those guys. Got back from school, went back to the brothers. We worked out a deal. It was like a bit of a sabbatical. Was brewing at the Roundhouse on their pub system. Did that for a couple of years. And then I got promoted to head brewer, and I was doing that for the past 3. It's a big difference, turning out 30,000 barrels a year versus, I don't know what we're hoping to do.
If you can.
As many as you can.
The market will allow for us.
Yeah. It is kind of crazy. I was in there a couple weeks ago to meet you, Alex, and Nick. You've been a part of the Fox Valley Whiskey Society for a little while, but we actually just met in face to face for the first time a couple weeks ago. I was shocked at how small. I don't want to say small, just very tightly packed it is in there. Like everything's just like literally right on top of one another. I mean, it's crazy that you can do everything that you can do in such a small space.
Yeah, built the brewery from the ground up because there's no room right and left. It's from the ground up. It's all
pretty much. Yeah.
One tank and then almost touch a barrel.
It's vertical. Everything is vertical.
Yeah, everything just goes straight up.
Yeah, which for Alex is a pain, but he does a pretty good job. So.
My legs, I'm gonna have some strong legs about a few months from now, going up and down ladders.
Yeah. Start doing a bunch of squats, man.
Yeah, right.
You just recently released a new beer, Alex. This was the first beer that you guys that you released on your own as head brewer. Talk to us about running on empty and kind of like what you were going for when brewing this beer.
Quite honestly, I just didn't want to screw it up. I brewed a lot of beers on a lot of different systems, but every system's unique. And I just wanted to use as few variables as possible. Yeah, I worked with some malt that I've always known how to manipulate, and then there's Citra, which everyone's favorite, and Centennial, the backbone it. So pretty much just a very light, easy drinking American Pale Ale, just to dial in that system and see what you can do. Since being hired, I've done 4 batches already in 13 days, so we're hitting the ground running.
Yeah. And you guys just had the launch for this just this past Friday. Mm-hmm. What was the response of the? Oh man, beer gets me every time. It's going to start to come up on me. What was the response of the customers that came in? I mean, was it like a glowing review? Because I'm drinking it right now. I literally just poured this one when we started this thing, and it's tasty, very very refreshing. I wish it was a little bit warmer outside, and I wish I was at my pool drinking this.
So this last weekend and the weekend before were the 2 sales weekends we've had since reopening after COVID. And I think a lot of that is because of bringing Alex on and just the small industry in Chicago when it comes to the beer industry. Everyone knows everyone. So word that Alex is coming to 93 Octane and they're like, okay, we got to go try his beer. It's people have been liking it. We sold a lot of crowlers, a lot of people at the bar on Friday and Saturday night, even on Sunday, grabbing drafts. So it's good.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and I was just there. I was just there earlier today, Alex. I got to talk to you for a little bit. Picked up my crowler.
Your oil can.
My oil can, yeah. So the turnout was a lot. I mean, it was a lot of people in the craft industry. I mean, the craft beer industry, same with the craft distilling industry. I mean, everybody knows everybody, and it's really weird because I was talking with I want to say it was Steven over at Brother Chimp over there in North Aurora. This was a couple months ago. It was one of the first episodes that I did, and he said, the craft beer industry is kind of this really weird place because we're all competing with one another, but at the same time, like, we're friends, we hang out, we all know each other, like, we all want each other to succeed because we want beer to succeed. We want people to drink beer, and we want people to drink good beer. I'm sure it was really kind of awesome to see, the community of craft brewers and people come together to try it. It's so I asked you guys a little bit ago. So one of the questions that I have in here, so I sent everybody the questions beforehand, so you guys can kind of read into them. I read an article last week about how Brewer Supply Group, the company that ships barley, wheat, and rye to craft breweries all across the Midwest, would slip salted nut roll candy bars in their shipments as a token of appreciation. As a result, brewers across the Midwest have started calling the candy bar a brewer's lunch. Jagged Mountain Craft Brewery in Denver released a milk stout meant to mimic this beloved candy bar last fall, which brought brewers from all across the Midwest to the brewery to try this one-of-a-kind beer. I love hearing about the influence brewers get when they come up with these ideas. What sorts of things influence you, Alex, and what kind of things do you hope to do with this new system that you guys have there at 93 Octane?
First off, have you ever had a Pearson salted nut roll?
They're gross.
No.
I don't like them. I'm a payday guy. I like payday bars.
Yeah.
Salted nut roll is a ripoff.
Yeah, it's a big deal when you get a nut roll as a brewer, especially being a young guy and the head brewer goes, hey, go reach in that big pallet of grain. Like, why would I do that? There's a candy bar down there, so you just kind of like slither down and reach for it. I buy from BSG. I mean, they have great malts, and they carry a lot of environment products, but nut roll, in the back of your mind, you always want to get a nut roll.
you're always crossing your fingers.
Little known fact: if your brewery gets big enough and you buy a nut grain, they give you like a 5-pound brick.
The Christmas presents.
What? So it's you've got Jagged Mountain Craft Brewery in Denver that's releasing this milk stout that's meant to kind of mimic that salt and nut roll. You've got like Energy City over in Batavia that's looking, taking fruit post fermentation, bananas and mangoes and all this. They get inspiration from the time they spent in Paris and all that. What kind of things? I mean, 93 Octane is very much, from what I've seen so far, brews very traditional style beers, which was really kind of refreshing to see in today's day and age, where it's like, milkshake this and pastry stout that, and let's just throw a bunch of adjuncts in there. What kinds of things influence you as a brewer, maybe like from your childhood or something that you got in the back of your head and you're like, man, I really want to brew a beer that reminds me of this or that has flavors of this?
That's interesting you say that, because when you have like a wow moment as a brewer and you taste your products and you have those like, this smells like my mother's cookies. I had cookies to the beer, but there's like that underlying tone of like a very comforting smell. I'm inspired. I mean, mainly seasonality. I always like to brew to the seasons. I just got off the phone with our one of our hop suppliers to get some wet hops in for Harvest Ale. We should be brewing that around early September, late August. So my background is the breweries I worked at brewed pretty traditional, old school beers, but I was also trained by Germans, so I know how to make German lagers. At the same time, I'm a craft beer nerd, and I like really hoppy beers. I like fruited beers, and I didn't really have that opportunity at my last shop, and I like the opportunity to brew some fruited stuff, and then max out as much hops as I possibly could put in a beer and get away with it.
Yeah. Do you guys? I know you guys have a. I don't know if it's too soon. Can we talk about the stout that you guys have aging in?
Oh no.
Barrel. Okay, good.
Bring it up.
You guys have the barrel age. Yeah, can we? There it is. So you guys did the Old Elk barrels that you guys have. That's actually from the barrel pick that you guys did with Old Elk that you guys are selling in the liquor store right next door. Now you're using those barrels to age your stout in. So it's kind of it's come full circle. I'm a bourbon guy. You guys know that. I love stouts. I love bourbon aged stouts. When can we expect this one to be finished, or is it kind of like, it'll be ready when it's ready kind of thing?
So it was put into barrels, I believe, in part of them in December and part of them in January. So they're going on, 8 months. We would like to do a 1-year anniversary party, which our 1-year anniversary would be Black Friday. That's when they did the real grand opening for the brewery. So we'd really like to do a release for Black Friday and then do a big barrel-aged beer release. There's a couple different beers in barrels right now. We've got our 20W50, which is our 10% Imperial Stout. That's in one of the Old Elk barrels. We've got a wheat wine, one of the barrels. We're excited for when those are ready. We're actually thinking about doing a nail polling next week and see how they're coming along.
Oh, you've got my phone number. You know how to reach me. So everybody watching or listening, make sure to follow 93 Octane Brewing on either Facebook or Instagram to keep up with the updates, because you guys do like Facebook events anytime you do a launch. So that's something that I would definitely be interested in coming to. For those of you guys watching live, if you guys have any questions for Nick or Alex, feel free to comment on YouTube or on Facebook. They'll pop up on the screen here. So if you guys have any questions for them, just feel free to comment. It's no surprise that the craft beer industry is hurting right now due to COVID-19 pandemic. A couple months ago, it was estimated by the American Brewers Association that as much as 50% of America's craft breweries could close permanently by August. We've seen many craft breweries close permanently as a result of COVID-19, but many more have been able to weather the storm. With breweries now able to allow patrons inside, they're able to get some of that lost revenue back. What has it been like for 93 Octane during the pandemic, and what sorts of strategies have you guys used to keep customers coming back? Oh, so the Wi-Fi, you guys watching out there, the Wi-Fi in at 93 Octane is bouncing off of all of the stainless steel equipment in the brewery, and it's a little shoddy. We were having a little bit of trouble getting Nick and Alex connected. They're also working off of some older computers that were kind of, I don't want to say hand-me-downs, but are a little bit older. So hopefully they'll come back here. 93 Octane was one that I was actually recently introduced to, actually by Nick Ford, their sales manager. It's something that I'd never had before. It's one of those places that I drive by all the time. You know, being a Fox Valley native, I drive by it all the time. So it's one of those places that I was able to see. And there's Nick. Nick,
sorry.
Don't worry, I kept going without you. I explained the Wi-Fi.
Stainless steel and a lot of glass. Yeah. Doesn't bode well for Wi-Fi signals.
I was just talking about how, you know, with 93 Octane, it's one of those places that I've driven by, even the liquor store next door. You know, everybody drives by that BP gas station. It's on a relatively busy intersection. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those places that I just kind of drove by time and time again. And when you don't even bother to look to see that there's actually a brewery there. You know that I'm a bourbon guy. I'm not really much of a beer guy. I'm getting into beer a little bit more. I was just telling people, I mean, this is one, actually, this one, the Joyride, that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm drinking.
And I was actually drinking this. So we were actually on last week with Rooster Beers in Vietnam.
I watched that episode, yeah.
This is what I was drinking while I was talking to Don out there in Vietnam. So while Alex
is just going to join me over here, by the way.
Yeah, that's fine. It's probably better to have only one computer connected to the Wi-Fi so they're not fighting over each other. Yeah. So tell us how. I mean, you guys. When did you guys open?
So Black Friday.
Okay, so Black Friday last year. So you guys have had a little bit of a trial run to kind of figure out what you're doing. What was COVID-19? I mean, what was that like for you guys being a relatively new brewery? I mean, that's got to be kind of a punch in the gut.
Oh yeah. So we were open, maybe 3 months, really, before COVID hit. 4 months.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're getting resituated with one computer.
That's usually how things go. There's always something that goes wrong, and we figure it out along the way.
So it's not easy. I think having the Pride locations is really what has kept us afloat, kept us in the game with everyone else. Having those 12 locations that, gasoline was essential. Gas stations was essential during all of this, so they stayed open the whole time. So we always had an outlet for our beers, ever since COVID started. And that's really been beneficial, especially with being able to still come out with new beers during that time when a lot of people just stopped brewing altogether. Mm-hmm. And we were a little late to the game getting on the whole curbside carryout and everything like that, but we got it set up last month, and we've seen good revenue out of that, which is helping. We're setting up an online store right now with online delivery too, so we're getting delivery going. So, nice. If God forbid this happens again in a couple of months where everything's down, at least we'll be a little bit better prepared.
Yeah, well, you have the liquor store next door, and now you guys have the tap room that's able to at least be open in some capacity, a little bit. So I mean, it's got to be exciting that there's something better on the horizon, even though it seems like every day in the news we're hearing, oh well, we have to shut down again, or we have to do this again, or it always seems like we're going back to square one. So it's promising to see that new businesses are at least still opening and and adapting to the change.
Yeah, we've seen a few breweries open just in the last couple months, which is amazing.
Well, you've got Art History that just opened up just right down the street from you guys.
I was talking to Tom the other day. We've got one of his beers as a guest draft right now.
Oh, nice. I have yet to actually go there, and actually I talked to Tom. So I work at a you guys know where I work. I come in with the blue shirt all the time. I work at a large home improvement retailer, and I actually helped Tom with a lot of the stuff to get the brewery built. First time I walked in there, it was like walking into honest to God, it was like walking onto a spaceship. It was just crazy to see everything. Yeah, stainless steel, copper, like wires and cables, and just like, I don't know, there might have been like a teleporter in the back room. Who knows? Nielsen Craft Beer Insight Poll shows that between March 7th and July 4th, which covers the COVID-19 period in the U.S., dollar sales of off-premise beers have increased almost 20%. Do you think COVID-19 has changed the way craft beer drinkers buy beer? And specifically, do you think more macro beer drinkers, the ones who drink Coors, Budweiser, Miller, etc., do you think those people have moved to drinking more craft beer since the coronavirus pandemic has started?
You want to field this one? You want me to field this?
I think
we probably both have an opinion on this. Yeah.
Well, based on with the virus being said, I think the trend leading up to it was like super hyper local craft breweries that I'm not going to go buy, a Sierra Nevada at the liquor store. I can go right down the block and get a super fresh pale ale.
Sure.
Now, with that being said, once the virus happened, I know working at Two Brothers, our draft sales just disappeared. So 30%, 35% of that business is done. But our large format, like 12 packs, we can't keep them on. They couldn't keep them on the shelf because someone's going to go to a grocery store, buy their groceries, and then buy 12 beers. So where the regional breweries were hurting leading into this are now thriving, for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is probably negatively affecting a lot of the small breweries at the time, especially the ones that didn't have curbside set up right away, because people weren't making more than one stop when they were going out. They were trying to live in contact as much as possible. So they were just grabbing whatever was available at the grocery store, which, 85% of shelf space at large chain grocery stores, even, like Benny's is still macro. It's still Budweiser, it's still Coors and Miller. It's always going to be a struggle against those guys, but I think in general, every year we're chipping away at it, as craft beer in general is chipping at the big guys, and hopefully that trend continues.
Yeah, it's interesting because I started doing this whole thing because I really wanted to start keeping everything kind of more local and supporting the craft industry. Guys like Miller and Anheuser, they don't need my money. They'll be okay without my dollars. Same with the distilling industry, Buffalo Trace and Heaven Hill. They'll be okay without me. So for us to kind of come together and rally around the craft brewery scene and the craft distilling scene, I know it's meant a lot to the breweries and the distillers out there. Last week, a brewery that will remain nameless posted on one of the Chicago craft beer Facebook pages that they are available to sell beer to people who actually like, and I quote, beer that tastes like beer, as a jab to other breweries who brew, and I quote again, orange juice beers. what was it? Orange juice beers, candy bar beers, and God knows what else. And that was the end quote. With 8,000 plus craft breweries in the United States, it's hard to differentiate yourself from one another unless you step outside the box and experiment. And in fact, that's what today's craft beer drinker wants. Let's face it, brewing an IPA with Citra or Galaxy or Mosaic hop isn't necessarily setting anybody else, anyone apart from another craft brewery. Do you think these breweries that only brew traditional styles of beer will fall by the wayside if they don't adapt to a new growing market of craft beer drinker that wants new, exciting beer styles and all these adjuncts and all this stuff in their beer? Or do you think that there's still a place for those more traditional style brewers?
I like to think both sides of that coin are true. I like brewing traditional beers. I don't have too much experience with the super fruited beers yet. I'm looking forward to giving a few batches of that a go. I certainly like drinking them. I have some concerns for shelf stability, but we can cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
Some sort of disclaimer on the cans.
Refrigerate immediately.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What else was there? Sorry. With as far as I mentioned earlier, most brewers have the same palette to paint with. I've been developing a few processes over the past 5 years to manipulate the brew house to use the same ingredients other people are using. For example, Whirlpool. Most brewers just dump a bunch of hops in a Whirlpool, let it spin, and then send it to the fermenter. You're missing a lot of opportunities to extract different flavors with different timings and temperatures. This process I've been working on for a long time, and now that I got a brew house to myself, I'm looking forward to experimenting with it, getting some turns with it.
Yeah. So.
What kinds of things? I mean, so I come from more of like the distilling side of things. I know a lot about the distillation of bourbon. For the bourbon world, you get a lot of those people kind of on the other side of the coin that I'm on, where I can differentiate A, B, C, and D out of all these different bourbons and scotches and whiskeys. But if I have an IPA on Monday, if I have another IPA on Tuesday and another one on Wednesday, I couldn't tell the difference between any of them. Back to back, I could, but from like day to day, I couldn't. When it comes to brewing, in distillation specifically, you can do a lot with like yeast strain. You can do a lot with like obviously your mash bill. Are there different variables that you could be using that maybe some people are just like, we don't want to do that. We're just going to keep it as traditional as possible. Can you kind of like tinker with the science a little bit to come up with something like just really crazy off the wall, but still is like, holy shit, man, this is actually pretty good.
There's a million variables you can work with and tweak. Like I mentioned earlier with the Whirlpool, there's a lot of guys talking about this process, but not too many people actually putting forth the effort and figuring out how to dial in their Whirlpool and how to extract as much flavor as possible while making a beer that's less bitter. So I think I have a going theory that 10 years ago you drink an IPA and it was really bitter, but it was also floral and smell, tasted hoppy and smelled hoppy, and they accepted the bitterness because you assumed it was bitter. If it smelled hoppy, it'd be bitter. Nowadays, I don't think people don't want the bitterness, but they still want the aroma and flavor. And so being able to manipulate your Whirlpool in such a manner allows you to brew very hop forward beers with very little bitterness.
I'm really curious to see, like, I'm super excited about, you guys being a newer brewery, especially being one in the Fox Valley. Super excited to see what you guys, Alex, you come up with here in the future. It's going to be really interesting to see what you can come up with in such a tight space. That kind of is just not something that anybody else is doing, which kind of leads me into my next question. In an area with so many breweries like Penrose, Riverlands, Alter, D&G, Art History, Two Brothers, Solomon, Pollyanna, et cetera, what sets 93 Octane apart from the rest? what's bringing our viewers into the door? Like, oh man, I have to go try that.
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is having these built-in outlets for our beer already. I mean, we have the Pride convenience stores, family-owned convenience stores that are spread all over Chicagoland area. That we're hitting a market that typically doesn't purchase craft beer. Most people that go to a convenience store or a gas station aren't going to buy a $12 4-pack of beer.
Sure.
They're going to pick up a 12-pack of Bud Light, a case of Truly, but
like Natter Days or something, which
or Natter Days.
Okay,
But having these outlets and having those beers right out front for people when they enter, I think it is allowing us to tap into a market that hasn't really been tapped.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge for us.
And once that happens, that person who doesn't only buy the craft beer tastes our products, they're gonna come back to the actual brewery.
Yep.
I've noticed that with, and I know you guys are probably a part of the same groups on Facebook. A lot of the ones that get recognition are, these guys that are just dumping a whole bunch of stuff into, a whole bunch of adjuncts into their beer. I told you guys I talked with Stephen Newman over at our Brother Chimp Brewing a couple months ago, and he's the same way, where it's very much kind of like that traditional style of beer, and it's really, really kind of refreshing to kind of see that, to see the evolution of the craft beer industry and what's popular and what's not. It seems to, like, just from month to month, it just changes wildly. I have been telling everybody about Joyride because I absolutely love it. It's really kind of unlike anything that I've had before, because like the Blood Orange is like right there, but it's not like one of those thick, milk-shaky kind of beers. You know what I mean? So it's nice to kind of have that right in our backyard. Andrew Meyer wants to know, how do you decide on how much to experiment versus keeping a beer year-round consistently the same?
So that's difficult. That's a balance that I think every brewery struggles with nationwide, I'm sure. You have to follow the trends somewhat because that's what you see people buying. You're not going to make something that isn't going to sell, otherwise you go out of business.
Right.
So say what we like to do is maybe 1 out of every 3 beers is a packaged product that everyone in the market wants, and then maybe the other 2 beers are one-offs that Alex wants to brew. Something that strikes his interest, something that he can experiment on. And one might be a traditional beer like a lager, or like running on empty, a pale ale. Something, pale ales I think are going to be the next hazy IPA.
And we don't have a flagship. I'm working to make a flagship because I still believe in them. I want something to keep the lights on, something that we're known for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The running on empty could be it. It also could be and I still have, I feel like I have to go there and actually sit down and call an Uber and drink all the beers and do a flight of everything. The two that I've had, the running on empty and the Joyride, those could keep the lights on for sure, because it's a change of pace from what you see. And no, not to jab at anybody Energy City or Penrose that's doing crazy stuff with sours and Energy City that's just dumping a bunch of fruit into it. They're really good beers, but it's really nice to see that there's still people that are we're just making traditional beers. These are beers for beer drinkers. They still got some really cool stuff in it. We're still doing some really neat stuff with with brewing. We're here. So it'll be, like I said, it'll be really interesting to see what you come up with here in the near future, Alex. One of the things that I have yet to talk about on one of these episodes, especially with the breweries that we do, is a very, very heated and very much so talked about topic in the craft beer industry, and that is a little app that we like to call Untapped. Love it or hate it, Untapped is a great way to keep track of the beers you have tried in a sea of beer. It would be virtually impossible for someone who has 5,000 plus unique check-ins to remember a specific beer from 3 years ago. So in that sense, it's a great tool to use to kind of track everything. Some hate it because they think it's only used as a rating app to see what other people think before they buy. Some use it for reviews, some use it as a tracking app, but regardless of what you use it for, the beer community is split. And I just want to know, what are your thoughts on Untapped?
Go ahead.
I think we have different views.
I use Untapped. He doesn't use Untapped.
I also, some people might call me a Luddite when it comes to apps and phone technology. Anywho, no, I don't use it. I wouldn't, like a chef doesn't read Yelp. I know brewers who have Untapped and they just used to keep track of beers. But at the end of the day, if you brew a beer, you're probably going to want to look what people have to say about it. And I know I've been curious when he enters a beer. I'm like, oh, what do people think about that?
We have a running joke that I will never give a beer a 5, pretty much. A full 5.
Yeah.
Even like I don't think I've given a 93 octane beer a 5. but they're weighted averages, so it gets rid of those outliers. Where you've got people that give it a 1 or you give it a 5. It takes the middle grouping. It takes the median, which I think it helps people looking for new beers. That's basically what it is. You see, it's a social aspect. You see other people checking something in, and it helps bring other people into your brewery.
There's so many underlying problems with that though.
The debate we've had before.
No one's being a brewer and a beer nerd. The first thing I see a new beer, the first thing I do is check the Best Buy names.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a lot of consumers that do that, and you're gonna rate a beer that's been sitting on the shelf for 6 months. It's not the same as the beer that's been 1 week old.
Exactly.
Right.
With that being said, I also, if someone, Nick knows I'm my biggest critic, and I don't need other people say I don't need to read what other people say about my beer, because honestly, I'm going to think much less of it than somebody.
It's true. He tells me all the time he's never made a good beer.
No, I made at my old shop. We made a batch. It was donated to Page, and it was right before GABF, Great American Beer Festival, and we're tasting out the tanks. And I remember this batch, and we went through it, and it was like a great brew day. I'm tasting it out with the QA/QC team. I'm like, this is going to win a medal. And then sure enough, we go out to Denver, and we win silver with that beer. So yes, I do make good beers. It's just,
yeah, sometimes I gotta steer him towards the light of his own beers.
Yeah. No, man, they're good.
Yeah.
He was asking me about giving him flavor profiles for running on empty. And I just started smelling and tasting, just listing the flaws. I'm like, no, I can't sell a beer with that.
Yeah, it's no, that's not going to work. Tell me what's good about it.
Yeah, just tell everybody it's great. See, I use Untapped. I don't have a whole lot of check-ins, but I use it for more of what have I had before, if I don't remember what I've had before, because a lot of times you're not just having just the one, you're having multiple. And craft breweries are notorious for higher alcohol content, 6, 7, 8, 10% plus beers. So you have a couple of those and you're like, I don't remember if I had that or not, and I don't remember if I liked it or not. So I use it for that. I'm more of oh, hey, I've had it before. But some people get really, really heated about it and they hate it totally. And I was just curious because it's funny because it's mostly brewers that I've encountered that are like, nope, I don't like
it. It has its time and place, and I understand why people use it. Just it's not for me. And with that being said, you've been to bottle shares before, right?
No.
You got 30 beers out there, and you got one guy not talking to anybody, snapping a photo of everything down the line. it's meant to be enjoyed, not to be
Right.
Yeah.
So I've got I've actually got two more questions. You guys, if anybody watching out there, if anybody again has any questions for Alex or Nick, feel free to comment whether on Facebook or on YouTube, and we'll post the question to the screen so they can answer it. This next one is a very, very simple question, but questions aren't just one sentence questions. There's always something that leads up to it. Craft beer was on a tear in the early part of the decade, growing by double digits year over year. In 2014, the Brewers Association set an ambitious goal for craft beer to hold 20% of the overall beer market share by 2020. As growth slowed in the mid to latter half of the decade, the Brewers Association had to walk back that goal, calling it, and I quote, a long shot. It was a bit embarrassing for the Brewers Association to admit it had overestimated craft beer's boom years. But sustained growth in the past few years shows that while the explosive growth has cooled, craft breweries aren't going away, even with COVID shutting many craft breweries across the country down. In 2019, there were 8,386 craft breweries in the United States, according to the Brewers Association, with each one of these breweries carrying, on average, about 7 beers on tap. That's over 58,700 different beers in just the craft industry in the United States. Some of us on Untapped have a long way to go, no doubt. This begs the question, is it too much? Is the market so saturated that the bubble must burst, and we're going to start seeing breweries close regardless of COVID or not?
I think in a way it may have already bursted. I think we've already. I mean, COVID might just accelerate it. I don't. Even when we saw the housing market bubble burst in 2009 or 2008, whatever it was. It took a couple of years to really set in and to see how much damage it really caused. How many people went bankrupt and lost their 401ks and so forth. I think it might be the same way with the craft beer industry. If that bubble has burst, it might be a couple of years before we really see those numbers start to decline.
Sure.
With all that doom and gloom, great industry to work in, and as you mentioned in the past, that we all know everybody, and we're just a family supporting one another.
Absolutely.
If I'm if I have a brew day and I ran out of hops or forgot to order hops, I can call up so and so and hey, you got this? I'll drive down, pick it up, and next time I get an order, I'll just drop off the hops to him.
Yep. We've gotten yeast from Riverlands when we've been in a pinch. We've gotten yeast from Tom at a Penrose when we've been in a pinch. It's especially localized. It is everyone helping each other.
Yeah.
And I do believe the bubble has burst, unfortunately. But us being innovative and creative and coming out with damn good beer, I believe we're gonna ride out the wave.
Yep, we hope we have enough experience and know-how to really weather the storm.
I think there's enough people out there. You look at social media forums and Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and you see all these pictures that people post, and you see the interest that the craft beer industry has. You had mentioned that during this whole shutdown that people don't want to go to more than one place, so they'll go to one brewery, get what they need. I've seen people on the adverse side of that who are like, I'm going to hit up this brewery, I'm going to go to this distillery, this liquor store, I'm going to go here, and here. It seems to me like the bubble had to have burst a long time ago, but it almost didn't. It just kept growing and growing and growing. With COVID, everything is obviously shut down, and there's been, breweries and restaurants and places that are like, we just can't sustain it anymore. But you guys, are a perfect example. You guys started 3 months before this whole thing hit, and you're still here, So it's very promising to see. It's a promising thing to see, especially in the craft industry. That you guys, like you said, Alex, you guys make damn good beer, and people are gonna, they're gonna come by because they want to support local. So I'm all for it. I think it's gonna just keep going and going and going, and we're gonna see beers that some people might find disgusting, like myself, with anything that has chili in it. I had a chili beer the other day, and it was gross. I hated every bit of it.
It takes a certain palate to like it.
Yeah, I took one sip of it, and I was like, "This is terrible. I don't want any more of it." So this is a good question, and this is actually a question that I've had also. So Andrew Meyer asked again. He said, "We always see hop variety on packaging. How does the yeast influence the taste of beer?"
It's a massive influence. One that's normally just overlooked. So certainly the most ubiquitous strain is the Cal Ale White Lab 001, the Chico strain. So it's what Sierra Nevada, their pale ale is made from. I'd say 90% of the beers, the American craft beers, are made with that strain. But with that, you can manipulate that strain with temperature, cell counts, pitching rates. These are all things that on a larger regional and brewer size can do. I'm working on getting a lab here so I can do my own cell counts and really dial in my yeast. There's varieties, there's at least 20 Belgian strains that all produce different esters, phenols. The German lager strains, super clean, dry finishing yeast strains. There's last I saw, White Labs had over 150 available.
Yeah, you got your saison strains, where you could either get, clove characteristics out of it or super dryness out of it. Like there's some weird stuff out there that you can do interesting things with.
But then I think we have to mention the hazies, and that it can be done with that California strain I was mentioning. But there's the London or the English ale strains for like Fuller's Porter that had never had any intentions of becoming a super dry hopped New England pale ale. That's the strain the guys are using. It's low flocculating, so the yeast doesn't want to drop out of solution. And because of that, there's some biotransformation that happens where the hop oils can bind to it. So, the haze in appearance, yes, it's hazy, but it's flavorful because of the haze.
Well, Four Roses, in the bourbon industry, Four Roses is kind of famous for, their yeast strains and using different yeast strains with different mash bills to create all these different flavors. I'm very unfamiliar with the brewing industry kind of just in general, which is really why I do what I do, because I want to learn more about it. Has using different yeast strains with say you did the Joyride with a different yeast strain, would it change so much that you're like, oh, well, this is a totally new beer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's your innovation right there. So it sounds like you've got a lot of work to do, Alex. There's a lot to play around with.
A lot of ingredients in the kitchen.
Yeah, I think we brought on the right guy who has the knowledge to do it.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So I've got one last question. There's always one question that I don't send. I want there to be some kind of element of surprise. And usually during this spiel is when the interviewees are like, oh, God, what is he going to ask? Not including 93 Octane or any other brewery that you've worked at in the past. What are you guys typically drinking on an average night? Let's say Miller High Life, because everybody says, I feel like Miller High Life is like the one that everybody's like, yep, that's what I'm drinking.
So I'm not even embarrassed about this. I drink a lot of PBR. That's like it's a staple in my fridge.
Yep.
It's, get done cutting the grass. I don't quite want something hoppy, and I'm thirsty. I have a cold blue.
Yeah, we've got a corn lager in the process that we're putting the recipe together. It's in the works. I'm drinking, I drink a lot of Daisy Cutter from Athey.
Yeah.
I still drink a good amount of Sierra Nevada.
Oh yeah.
I drink a good amount of pale. I mean, it's definitely changed. It's not the same pale it was 10 years ago, but it's still a damn good beer.
Two Hearted.
Yeah, Two Hearted from Hell.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Great fucking beer. I'm sorry, excuse my language.
Oh, no worries. As long as you guys aren't drinking Truly, that's really all that matters.
All right.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. I went through a phase as well.
All right. So I'm from like a guy who makes alcohol. It's a phenomenon, and I never really understood it. And then my girlfriend, come like early summer, is like, "Oh, this is what I drink in the summer." So I started sampling them. But I also drink a lot of LaCroix, so it naturally. Oh, this ain't too bad. So for the past couple of months, we've been buying like a new 12-pack and just seeing what we like.
That reminds me, my wife asked me to pick up one on the way home.
Oh well, yeah.
At this point, I'm a Corona fan.
But I think in 2020 you almost have to be.
Yeah.
I still drink porters and stouts year round too.
Oh, I do too. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Even
I
on
buy Founders Porter all the time.
Yeah.
Still one of my favorite beers.
We do. A few friends of mine, we go up to my buddy has a lake house up in Wisconsin, in Pardeeville, Wisconsin. For those of you who are familiar with Wisconsin, it's about 40 minutes north of Madison. It's Pardeeville, Pardeeville. It's just a little town right on Park Lake, and we do a beer share every time we go up there. It's a bunch of beer guys, and I'm the one bourbon guy. And every single time, it's almost exclusively stouts, and they're hot summer days and they're hot summer nights, and
Yep.
It doesn't matter the temperature. I'm a stout guy through and through.
I'm still working on getting my wife to move from originally it was Miller Lite, and then I got her onto pale ales, and then hoppy IPAs, and then double IPAs, and then now hazy IPAs. I'm still working on the stouts and porters.
My wife jumped straight to stouts. She was like, "This is what I like. This is what I'm going to drink."
A coffee drinker?
It's like every time we go somewhere, it's like, "Oh, well, we have to try this stout."
Is she a big coffee drinker?
Yes. I'm looking down. She's laying on the floor next to me.
A lot of people that drink coffee, it's an easy transition for them. But
Yeah. It's that dark coffee, the dark coffee notes, and the chocolatey, and I used to not like them at all. I used to not like stouts, especially barrel-aged stouts. And now that I started getting more into bourbon, I'm like, that's my drink right there is those barrel-aged stouts. So I'm really excited for the stout that you guys the barrel-aged stout that you guys are going to be coming out with. I think the best thing to do there for those of you who are watching and listening is to get a Old Elk barrel pick and get the stout, and then buy them together, so you have the whole family, and you can try them side by side to see the influence. That's what I tell people when they drink, a bourbon that's aged in a sherry cask or in a Madeira cask. Do both side by side, and then you can definitely tell which is which, and what flavors influence the bourbon.
Yep.
We are up on the hour. I want to thank Nick and Alex for joining me tonight for a round of Q&A and a couple of beers. You can find 93 Octane at their brewery at 1825 Lincoln Highway in St. Charles, and on social media at 93 Octane Brewery. I posted their website, 93octanebrewery.com, in the comments here on YouTube. Nick, Alex, do you guys have anything before we get out of here and have another beer?
Thanks for supporting local. That's really the biggest thing for us is, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without all of you guys keeping us going.
Yeah.
So it's really huge for us. Thank you everyone for supporting us.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for the good conversation.
Yeah.
Everybody make sure to go check out 93 Octane, especially those in the Fox Valley. I myself recommend the Joyride. I've been talking about it all night. I've got it right over my shoulder right here. Thanks to everybody who tunes in and watches live each week and listens to us on the go on the Glassless Travel podcast. Make sure to check back next week as we sit down with Spirit Works Distillery out of Sonoma County, California, who just won the American Distilling Institute's Distillery of the Year for 2020. We'll sit down with Jeff Schwartz again in a couple weeks. The Whiskey Fellow will be sampling some Redbreast 12 with a special guest. And on the 19th, we'll be sitting down with author and writer Sam Nash Green, who literally wrote the book on whiskey. Thanks for everybody tuning in. You two stick around for a little bit, and we will see you next week. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.